Chris Dimino is down there in Atlanta. I would love to hear what the Braves people's point of view on this one was, Chris, as just a bizarre happening yesterday for your first game. It did not go over well with the Philly fans.
No, I'd imagine it didn't. We just had the scrum with Gabe Kapler just now, and process seems to be a big word. They trust the process. They do it all over again. The only regrets he'll have is if he's sitting there. This is his words, not mine. Basically, I'll paraphrase. If I'm sitting there in my office or wherever, the hotel in my house, and we didn't get it right because we didn't do the work leading up to making the decision, then you might have a regret. That's the human element part of it. He doesn't believe that that's what last night was. I can tell you this. No cheering in the press box, no high-fiving in the press box. I was sitting amongst fans, and we all kind of looked at each other and said, oh, good. And it seemed to be an good moment for Atlanta, no doubt about it.
That seemed to be what the Atlanta players said, too. Like, once they took him out of the game, that gave us a little jolt.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman, actually, that's what he said. You know, he looked over and said, that guy, I'm glad he's gone. Look, here's my whole thing, and I don't care about people call it analytics. I don't even know if anybody really knows what that means anymore. What does it mean? Is it a card? Is it a decision before you make a game? Is it a number? 20 at-bats, 72 pitches, third time through? Whatever. There's a whole lot of things. Guys in the outfield have cheat cards now. Catchers have cheat cards now. Guys have things in their hats in their back pockets. So take all of that out of it. Here's what it comes down to me. It's still about eyeballs and feel. And if after 68 pitches, your opening day starter is not better than anything you're trotting out of your bullpen, you don't have a really good opening day starter. That's it. It's as simple to me. He's never going to be healthier than he was right now, yesterday in the opening day, his first game on the mound. He's never going to be more adrenalized to actually carry himself through what might be a tough moment if he runs into one. And let's say he's 80%, 85%. You guys know this team better than me. But you can't tell me anybody trotting out into that bullpen is better than Aaron Nola at that point, which tells me Aaron Nola is supposed to keep pitching in that game.
Chris Dimino, 680 The Fan in Atlanta, looking at the Braves and Phillies, but obviously that move last night. Now, I mean, was it broached at all about why would you let him hit in the sixth and if you're going to pull him out in the seventh? Because I mean, in the bottom of the inning, because that to me, I mean, fine. If your philosophy is some numbers told me he hit the number and I don't feel comfortable, why would you let him hit?
Well, I think what it was is you thought you had a guy in the bullpen. If it came down to a Freddie Freeman at bat, a guy who hadn't given up a home run to a lefty all last year, let's actually throw him against the best bat in the lineup, which happens to be a lefty. You know, look, not every decision's a bad one, that blows up in your face. Not every one is a good one that actually you hang on and maybe get lucky with a double play ball that wouldn't have been a double play ball if the guy hadn't shifted. So it's too long a season to try to play that. It's just amazing in the guy's first game on the bench, you had a number one starter, not a 4, not a 5, a number one starter on opening day come out after 68 pitches. And if you want to tell me that's the norm, fantastic. Stop paying these guys all that money. Stop paying them all that money. And maybe it's got to be like the NBA where there's no such thing as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe there shouldn't be a designation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a rotation, because if you're going to treat them all the same, you don't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anymore.
Right, it's essentially everybody just give me 5. Give me 5 innings, right, and we turn this thing over. But I guess that morphs into we're previewing the Braves here with Chris Dimino here, a part of NL East Week, where, this is a Braves team that, quite frankly, maybe your bullpen should be able to shut down. Maybe that tells you a little bit more about your bullpen.
It might. Look, a couple of things happened yesterday. Nick Markakis hit cleanup. You're not going to find a corner outfielder with less home runs or fewer home runs in what we think is going to be a hitter's ballpark here at SunTrust after 1 year. And all of a sudden he does what he does. That's 3 home runs for a team that really isn't expected to have many 3-home-run games. That's good news. Either bad news for you or good news for the Braves. Maybe we got a little bit of something wrong about both teams. But it's not going to be an offensive team. They're going to have to steal bases. I really do look, to me, Ozzie Albies is the key to the whole thing. And I hate doing this because I work with people with the Ronald Acuna, the guy who will be up in a couple of weeks, Roberto Clemente, Hank Aaron. I've heard it all. My head is spinning, and I keep telling everybody to be quiet. Let's stop talking about it. But when it comes to Albies, 57 games in, they're going to be a better team because he's going to play 150-plus. And he's the type of guy that, and I'll go against what I said because I hate myself for it, Phil Rizzuto, Pee Wee Reese, Joe Morgan. The Altuve is the easy one right now. But I think there are guys on teams, better teams than the Atlanta Braves are right now, no doubt about it, historically, who've kind of looked at one guy and said, well, he's not wink, wink, our best player, but we go as he goes. That's Albies this year. I'm telling you, when the Phillies see this guy, he can go deep. You saw that last night. But he's going to hit triples. He's going to hit doubles. He's going to hit singles and probably attempt to steal 40 bags this year. He's going to be the guys that your fans are going to love to hate because I really think with 17 or whatever it is left with this team, he could be the biggest pain in the ass that you guys face all year here.
So a lot of people, Chris, put the Braves and the Phillies as kind of wild card dark horses. Do you see them in about the same place right now?
Yeah, look, the Arrieta deal will tell me, the Santana deal will tell me it's not really that. Philadelphia sort of marched ahead by spending money this year where the Braves didn't. The Braves' money is going to be spent this offseason. If it looks like they're competitive, you might spend money in terms of getting a contract that's already pre-existing. You might spend money in the offseason by getting a contract that has money on it. They didn't spend money this year. They were dumping Kemp. They were doing things to free up for 19. I don't think this is the year. I think the Minnesota Twins story last year is the, hey, why not us? You know, oh, look what they did. Why can't it be us? You know, let's come from beyond the left field wall. I don't think this team is built for that. I don't know if the bullpen, which is the easiest way to get wins, like the easiest way to put wins in a total over 162 is to have your bullpen be in a place better than you thought it was. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case when all is said and done here. I don't think they're going to steal wins out of the bullpen the way that you have to push it past 80 or 81.
Yeah, and this is a team, Atlanta, that's got an interesting mix here. I mean, you got some young guys. You got some guys who have been around. You mentioned Albies, but Freeman's been a guy who's been around. Suzuki behind the plate, he's been around. But it seems like this team, and Markakis, another guy. I mean, yesterday he was supposed to be a prospect 10 years ago, which is another bizarre thing with this whole Kapler. You know, because if you go with numbers analytically, Freeman was 1 for 9 against Neris, and Markakis is 500 against Neris. Another but you look through this lineup, you would think Freeman's the one guy that you want to try to avoid, and then, you know, obviously they walked him. So this is a really interesting lineup with a lot of, you know, mixture of some young guys and some older veterans.
Yeah, and I think when Ronald Acuna comes up and plays left field, where he hits, I'm not really sure. Ideally, you don't want your catchers hitting cleanup. Flowers got hurt yesterday. We'll see how long he might actually be suffering from what looks like an oblique. But their catchers hit 31 home runs last year. Guys, I'm going to tell you this. The best position on the field for the Atlanta Braves last year when it comes to bang for buck, the money you spent and paying above your pay grade, what the catchers did last year, it's not even close. The thing that worries me is the one place that I know they won't be as good as last year. They can't be, is catcher. They just can't be. They can't be as good as they were for what they didn't pay last year. I think, honestly, and I'm not a homer and I'm not waving pom-poms, and I'm saying 80 wins, not 92, I don't think there's a place on the field where they're going to be worse than last year. Matt Kemp and his 2 bad legs and his big fat ass, gone. I got a young guy out there who I think everybody's excited about. Albies for 150-plus. Freeman, who missed 7 weeks. There's a gain. If Dansby Swanson's better, I don't think it can be worse. I get that. I'm going to get a gold glove in right field. And if Nick Markakis, the strange thing, the guy that started, Julio Teheran, they owe him $19 million this year and next year. And he was a bargain when they signed the contract. But he's not a number one guy either. So the question now becomes, do you want him to pitch well enough where he's tradable? I get rid of the contract, even though it would only be about $15 million if it's a trade deadline, to maybe elevate a guy up? Or do I want him to pitch well enough where I can't even think about trading him? Markakis has got the same thing going on. Last year, of an $11 million deal. I don't think it's going to pain anybody around here if they're not in it. Good guy, good clubhouse guy. I've never seen a guy less excited about his first career walk-off home run after 10 years in the league. That was him, because that's who he – by the way, did you hear his postgame?
Who, Markakis?
Yeah.
No, we were too busy listening to everybody blast Kapler.
Well, if you listen, Nick Markakis in a nutshell is exactly what he did after that game. Did you know he had the second most home runs of active players without hitting a walk-off? Second in all of baseball. Troy Tulowitzki now sits at number 1 still. I think he's got 242 homers without a walk-off. Markakis was second. You wouldn't have known if they won, lost, if he had a good day, bad day, if something was wrong at his house. He so didn't want to be at the pile at home plate. If he could have peeled off after first base and just gone up the tunnel, he would have. He wanted to finish it out because to make it official, that's what you have to do. But he was nonplussed by the whole thing. I think he becomes a guy that can become a trade deadline guy as well. And if somebody wants a $5 million player, $4.5 million player for the back end of the year, who's a professional, who's going to roll out and give you a good AB, he could be one of the other chips they use. They won't get a ton for him, but they could actually get something for him if he plays well this first half.
Chris, you keep mentioning Albies. How about Ronald Acuna? Because, of course, here we had a guy, Scott Kingery, where it looked like they were going to delay that major league service time. Is that basically what they're doing down there, just going to bring him up after 2 weeks to control that clock?
Yeah. You know what's crazy? The Players Association says, well, we can file a grievance if you say something like, well, we just want to keep him down because of service time. But it's their collective bargaining agreement. Like, I don't even know why teams can get in trouble for that. So you give there are things he needs to work on. But it's strange. It's the Players Association that has a problem, but they're the ones that put this whole thing into play, so I don't really get it. you can't be as honest as probably you want to be because it's just not worth it. You send him down for a few weeks, he comes up and he starts to play baseball. But, yeah, there was a report, and both sides have denied, that he was offered a $30 million deal to try to do what they did with Kingery. I think, and I talked to some guys, including Neil Walker, when he was in town with the Yankees the other night, the money in baseball is changing. It's rolling to different places. I'll give you an example down here. Brian McCann and Jeff Rancourt, two guys who came up at the same time, both had success early. McCann does the deal for $29 or $30 million. Rancourt doesn't. Here's what Brian McCann told me 2, 3, 8 years into his career. Signing that deal relaxed him. It just relaxed him. He honestly, and by the way, he had a $90 million plus payday in free agency because he was only 28 or 29 when it was time to hit free agency. But he said he was set for life. His family was set, and he just relaxed and played baseball. Whatever happened after that, I think some guys get nervous about the money meter. Is it rolling forward? Is it rolling backwards? I'm not telling you he's supposed to sign for 30 or 35 or 40. That's his business. I don't peek into a man's pocket. But I can tell you there's going to come a point when your agent or somebody in your family should sit down and say, if you can play, you will be 26 years old hitting free agency. 26. Get your life settled, have lifetime money, maybe put your mind at ease, and then find out what the bigger payday can be somewhere down the road. That's the way at least the conversation would go with me if any of these young guys ask me.
It's funny, Markakis' quote last night was a lot of emotions flying around right now.
Not with him. Brother, you could have checked his pulse and you wouldn't have known if he had 6 minutes to live.
Chris Dimino, 680 The Fan in Atlanta, is at the ballpark for Phillies and Braves. Last night, a lot of people here kind of felt that Kapler came off a little arrogant in the way that he answered the questions. I mean, he was asked, like, hindsight 2020, yep. Do you make – and he's like, I do it every time. I have no problem. We kept kind of, continuing the fact that, we have confidence in these guys. But did he seem like that today? Did he seem like maybe I slept on it and I'm second-guessing myself? Or, heck no, I do it 50 times over?
No, look, I've always said if you're going to go by the two-point conversion card, if you're going to go by the sheets that somebody in a cubicle in baseball has handed you and we're going to stick to this, it's almost like playing poker. What's your thing? Are you going to hit on 12 or you're not? You're going to hit on 13, 14 or you're not? A lot of times it's supposed to be dependent upon what the dealer has, and to me the analogy is depends upon who's on the mound. Aaron Nola is not your fifth starter. So I do think you might play it differently, but some guys who play blackjack say, I do the same thing every time no matter what. That seems to be the way that he's looking at it 24 hours later. I can tell you this. I did ask him. A lot has changed about the game. We all know that. A lot. Good, bad, and different. There's reams of paper. I've always said until you actually put a heart monitor on a guy in the eighth inning when he's playing shortstop or coming out of the bullpen or stepping into a big at-bat, until you give me what his heart rate is, I really don't care about all the other numbers because that's the one that I'd be most concerned with, and we don't do that. So throw that out for a second. I asked him. He was asked, did he talk to Hobie last night? He did. Told him, I'm going to put you right back out there. He was asked if he talked to Aaron Nola. He said he spoke to Aaron Nola today. Let me tell you what's different. Managers didn't do that stuff years ago. Now, he said, paraphrase, if I was managing in the 40s, I would have done it this way. It's different. You pinch hit for a guy, you just pinch hit for him. He doesn't need to know why, and he's probably not going to have the balls to ask you. It's not a conversation that had to be had. It seems to be sort of a modern-day thing where you go up to the guy to either explain why or have that conversation.
Right.
He did do that. He said that's something that he believes in the human element. Well, okay, I don't know what you tell Aaron Nola. I mean, you want to tell me you had a conversation with him today. What are you going to tell him? We have every confidence in you, except.
Right.
So I don't even know what the conversation does.
And not to mention, this is the kind of thing, this is what's going on here. And yesterday, Herrera's not in the lineup. Today, he's in your 3-hole.
Right.
I mean, bizarre. Yesterday, the pitcher hits 9th. Today, he's hitting 8th. I mean, it seems like it's just a weird thing. Like they're almost pulling, something out of a hat, putting this thing together right now.
So let me ask you guys something. You know that the easiest here's where I'll give him credit. Now, whether you like the answer, I would do it again, whether it was arrogant or not. Everybody hears it and hears what they want to hear. What I also don't like, though, is a guy who will not make a move because he's afraid to answer the question at the end of the night in any sport.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't we go for it on 4th down there? Well, the book says. Why don't you? So at least, if nothing else, if he knows every night in this game you've got to answer game 1 of his managerial career, he has to answer the question. You'd say whatever you want about the answer, whether you liked it or not. But at least I give him credit for making a move that he knew he was going to have to answer to at the end of the night. I'm tired of guys who don't do things, who are afraid to do things because they say, you know what, the book said to do this. Well, he can tell me the book said to take out Aaron Nola. I don't know that book. I've never read that book. But they obviously in the Phillies organization have a book that says Aaron Nola comes out at that point. You better at least be able to say, this is what we do because this is what we prepared for.
Chris Dimino, 680 The Fan in Atlanta. The Braves and Phillies, they continue on. Great stuff. Good job by you going in that Phillies clubhouse and hearing from their manager as those guys have Game 2 tonight in Atlanta. Thanks, Chris.
All right, guys, appreciate it. Listen, seriously, have fun this season. I hope it's listen, you couldn't get anything more exciting in terms of sports talk radio. I root for storylines. Boy, you guys had a hell of a storyline today.
Yeah, bigger story. Kapler or Embiid?
Good question, because we don't – he's in town tonight. We don't have to face him. I would think Kapler, it's only one of 162. Embiid bigger because I think Philadelphia – hey, by the way, like the 76ers, this team is trying to prove to somebody that you want to come play here, big free agent. Certainly it's going to be about money, but don't you think whether it's Dream, it's LeBron, or it's Bryce Harper here – don't you think both of these teams are in a place where they have to prove they can win?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe get that last piece, that last guy to come on in?
No doubt.
That's what's going to be interesting about
Here's a question, though, Chris. If Kapler walked to the mound and Arrieta's out there, are they getting in a fist fight?
So funny you said that. I will no names, please. I will not tell you who said this to me, but it was so funny. I had a conversation on the phone about 3 hours ago about just that. Which guys will you not even think about going to the mound, or which guys will tell you, you want to talk to me the next day? I'm not talking to you the next day. I'm not. There's no conversation to be had. You know, you're right. There are certain guys that what's the protocol? You hand the ball to a manager? There are certain guys who squeeze that thing to dust as they're handling it in, waiting for their general pat on the ass, being told what a good job they did as they're taking care of the game. It's not going to fly with Arrieta. It's so funny you said that because that was a conversation that I had. We named 7 pitchers in baseball that I'm not so sure. Look, Gabe Kapler is who he is. I wouldn't want to fight the guy. But at the end of the day, there are certain pitchers that I'm not so sure wouldn't have a problem with what happened last night. And I mean physically, where we'd see the problem right there on their face and wearing it on their sleeve as they walk to the dugout.
We'll see. That will be a storyline on the home opener next Thursday. Thank you, Chris.
All right, guys. Enjoyed it.